This is the Craigie Bushland Reserve in the Perth northern suburbs. It's a much-loved patch of bush, and for a very good reason. Isn't this an amazing view?
Yeah, it is, Josh, isn't it? It's about 56 hectares of tuart and Banksia woodlands, and it's been identified as a Bush Forever site, which means it's got a lot of conservation significance.
The reserve is flanked by a wastewater treatment plant, the freeway, and suburbia. I guess it'd be fair to say that this pocket of bush must be under a fair amount of pressure.
Absolutely, Josh. And that's why this fence that excludes foxes and feral cats is really important.
The feral-proof fence was erected in 2010 and has enabled the eradication of foxes, cats and rabbits, which is having a big impact on the health of the local ecosystem. Leonie has been paying close attention through her research to the role of a particular native critter.
So you can see that there's quite a few diggings going on here, Josh. And this is a really good example.
Now that's not from a rabbit, is it?
No, it's from a Quenda. So a Quenda is a type of bandicoot. And we thought the Quenda used to be part of the southern brown bandicoot complex, but it's its own unique species, endemic to southwest WA. The fence that we looked at earlier has allowed us to do is reintroduce them to this part of the bushland. And so DBCA, the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions, did a translocation in 2013 of about 46 Quenda.
And what's the difference in a Quenda digging this hole as opposed to a rabbit digging the hole in terms of regeneration of plants?
Quenda dig quite differently to rabbits. Quenda are omnivorous, so they're looking for underground beetle larvae and plant tubers as well as fungi.
Okay.
And so they're scenting them with their beautiful long nose, and they're creating a dig, and they're digging underneath them through their hind legs and creating this beautiful spoil heap that you can see over here. Now, when you've got a rabbit digging, a rabbit often digs dirt so it's a bit more dispersed, and it often leaves pellets behind. Yeah.
So this looks like a little compost pile.
Doesn't it ever?
You've got
it's
leaves
great.
and twigs and it's covered. So this becomes a site that's better suited for things to germinate from, is it? Or?
Yeah, so that is exactly what can happen. So what we think goes on is that the soil is removed from in there, and so that's firstly breaking the soil crust, and that means that you're allowing more soil moisture when it rains to penetrate into the soil. So it means plants might be able to get more moisture. And then you're putting the soil on top of litter. So you can see that there's a lot of leaves underneath here. And because it's quite damp, that's provided a really good environment for that litter to decompose, which is how we're getting nutrients back into the soil. And so when we've done some trials where we've actually seeded areas like Quenda digging, we found that you can get a lot more recruitment of things like tuart species and acacia and Conidia prostrata from areas that have been dug by Quenda compared to undug areas.
It's unintentional cultivation.
Absolutely, yeah.
Quenda are listed as a WA priority conservation concern. Their numbers have been decreased by predation from introduced animals and habitat destruction. The good news is that the 46 Quenda that were introduced to the Craigie bushland have multiplied quickly to now be in excess of 100. Leonie and her research team have been monitoring them and running experiments to understand the Quenda's impact on native vegetation.
This is one of our exclosure plots, Josh. We've got 5 of these throughout Craigie bushland, and what we've got here is a fence that excludes Quenda from the area, whereas outside we've got Quenda that can dig as much as they like. So what do you notice?
Well, firstly, there's a lot more understory vegetation, but also a lot more leaf litter.
Yeah, there really is. And if you compare that to over here, where you can see that there's been quite a bit of Quenda activity, there's quite a lot lower litter load. And so what we've done, one of the things we've looked at, is how much litter is there in an area where a Quenda digs. And we found that there's a lot less once you've got Quenda turning that soil over and decomposing the litter compared to where we've stopped them digging.
And what's the impact of that?
Well, that probably means that we've got lower fuel loads. So one of the really interesting research questions that we'd love to look at in more detail is how that might change how a fire moves through an environment.
Okay, so we've spoken about building up organic matter and dealing with non-wetting soil, bit of composting. I've got to ask, as gardeners, what are they doing in terms of manure?
Well, we spoke before that Quenda like feeding on a whole range of things, including invertebrates and plant material, but also fungi. And so they're probably really important at dispersing fungi throughout the environment. And that means that that's even helping even more other plants as well.
They're inoculating the soil as well.
They are, indeed.
These guys are serious gardeners.
Absolutely.
You've described the types of benefits that come from the Quenda being here in terms of the bush. But what makes this a good site for the Quendas?
Well, this is a really good spot for Quenda because there's lots of understory vegetation and it's really dense, and there's Hibbertia throughout the area, as well as things like the grass tree.
And what's so special about the grass trees?
The grass tree can be a Quenda home. This is a really good example of where Quenda like to seek shelter. You can see that they've made a bit of a break in underneath the grass tree, and yeah, and it's nice and dry. Look, all the sand out here is quite wet, but in there it's still nice and dry.
It looks very cosy.
It probably is very cosy.
So do they have shelter as individuals or as groups?
No, as individuals. So they can have overlapping home ranges, but they like to be solitary.
Australia has lost many of its native digging mammals, and the species that have survived are in decline. Research like this can help us understand their important role in ecosystem health and bushland restoration.
What we're seeing here, Josh, with the return of Quenda to Craigie bushland is the reintroduction of ecosystem processes that have probably been lost for quite some time. And that's really exciting, and hopefully we'll find out a lot more.